Good morning, afternoon, and evening, everyone, and welcome to our podcast, Neurodiversity from the Inside Out, the future of our children. My name is Uzma, and I'm thrilled to be your host for this important conversation. Today, we'll be looking at ADHD and artificial intelligence, navigating the pros, cons, and its mindful use for neurodivergent individuals. And we welcome Sam Warner. Sam is an experienced neurodivergent communication specialist, enhances diversity, equity, and inclusion policies for leaders, leveraging her lived experiences as an autistic ADHD woman. She fosters loyalty, diverse thinking, innovation, and increased profits. Since 2008, Sam has delivered impactful keynotes, training and coaching for clients such as Nokia, Ocado, the Royal Ballet School, Welsh Water, AANE, and the NHS, leaving audiences with engaging memories and inspiration. Thank you, Sam, for joining us, and congratulations on the wonderful work you're already doing and making such a huge difference. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. We're honored, and we're excited to be talking about such a wonderful topic today. And really, my first question, Sam, for you today is, I guess, starting with your personal journey, if that's okay, and really sharing how you discovered your own neurodivergence and how it shaped you as a communication specialist.
Okay, so I'm 52 now, and when I was 35, I used to work in an IT office with a lot of guys, stereotypically. And one afternoon, we thought it would be hilarious if we could do an online Asperger's test to discover whether or not any of us were autistic. I don't even know how the conversation began. Anyway, we all did it, and I scored the highest.
Wow.
Hmm. Yeah, that was interesting. So that became my latest obsession to go down that voyage of self-discovery. And it wasn't until much, much later that I ended up getting a formal diagnosis, only 3 years ago, in fact, when I was 49. And I also was diagnosed with ADHD as well. But I'd lots of healthcare professionals telling me I couldn't possibly be neurodivergent because I'd held down a career, I'd bought a house, I'd been married, I could drive a car, all these stereotypes that they think that neurodivergent people can't possibly do. And what I'd done was I was so fascinated with humans and communication because I found it so difficult. I ended up becoming a specialist in it almost by accident. It wasn't a plan.
Oh,
It's just how it came about because I'm passionate about personal development. So then it was the tap on the shoulder from the universe saying, hey, you need to talk about this neurodiversity stuff so other people don't go through what you went through. Oh, yeah. And you can use your communication skills. Oh, yeah. So that's how it all came
wow. So
together.
putting it all together, really. That's amazing. That's a wonderful story. Thank you for sharing. And my biggest thing here is you mentioned you could drive, you had a job, you were married, you're living a typical life, right? So,
Yeah.
what do you think the challenges would be for a neurodivergent individual? If any, for if this now the stereotype is saying, well, you can't be neurodivergent if you're married and you're driving and you're working and you have a job. What's going on? What are these stereotypes we're holding then?
Well, I'd become incredibly good at masking.
Mm-hmm.
And we all do mask to a certain extent. We adapt ourselves to who we're with, the situation. We will be different at work to how we are at home or when we're with our friends. That's perfectly natural for all humans. But it's the labor that it takes for someone to conform and adapt and change. It's the endless rehearsing what I'm going to say, thinking about what right time to say it, uh, then analyzing, did I say the right thing to the right person at the right time? Could I have said it better? Am I going to get in trouble? It's the extra labor around everything that makes being neurodivergent exhausting, and sometimes for some people disabling. And being told off constantly that you'd said the wrong thing, asked the wrong question, you're too much, you're too loud, you're too exuberant. We love your enthusiasm, but could you tone it down a bit? Could you be more consistent? That's such a great phrase, isn't it? Like,
Mm.
what does that mean?
Yeah.
So, I didn't know that that's why I was so stressed and so exhausted all of the time. I just thought that's what being a human was.
Yeah.
And then found out that that's not what being a human is, and most people aren't like that.
That's exhausting. Just you sharing that is so exhausting. Masking is pretty common anyway, for a lot of our neurodivergent individuals, and you're right, when they come home and they're in a comfortable environment around people that they feel safe with, they do have this sense of relief and release, right? Which is, it can be very difficult. And if we're going to be masking all day, every day, and in your case, you did that for many, many years, I just can't imagine what you were going through.
Mm. I had very strict parents, and they're both neurodivergent as well. So I was very good at following
Mm,
rules. So school loved me
mm,
because I did everything I was told to do. I was a good little school pupil. I was never absent, followed all the rules, did all my homework. I got okay grades. It wasn't beneficial to stand out as a top student at all because you would get bullied. So I would deliberately not do a great job so that I would fly under the radar.
wow,
And, yeah, it was all a case of I'd like to be invisible, please.
wow,
And then people don't bully invisible people. So that was a way of living to protect myself. And there's lots of people who are adapting all the time, not just neurodivergent, neurotypical too. It might be because they're chronically shy, or they're introverted, or that maybe they've suffered some trauma.
yeah,
Because don't forget, not everybody is born neurodivergent. Some people have acquired neurodiversity. So it might be from complex PTSD, traumatic events, brain injury. There's other ways of having a different brain.
yeah, absolutely. Well, there's lots of different challenges, I'm sure, as individuals growing up and trying to, comply and follow a system. Sometimes that isn't so ready for us, and that's tiring in itself. But really, my main question today and the conversation that I would like to spend some time on is on AI. And I know we've talked about this
Mhm.
before coming on, live today. We've had a conversation prior to this, and it's such an interesting topic. And I just want to know from your experience, what are the most promising ways AI tools can support people with ADHD in managing? Again, we've talked about emotions. Look at time, look at productivity, lots of different things, right?
Absolutely. Yes, there's a plethora of apps available to people to help people manage their tasks or their chores at home. There's body doubling apps if you need to have someone else in the room with you. There's accountability services helping to check in with you to make sure it's done, give you a deadline. There's all sorts of like task checking things off, getting a little reward,
Mhm.
gamifying,
Mhm.
having to do things, which really appeal to some people. And these things have been around for a little while. They aren't brand new, which is great. You know that they've been around for a while, and they're always developing and getting better and better. But with AI coming in, we've got even more tools at our fingertips to help us, not just with productivity. I mean, goodness me, we've been using things like the
Yeah.
Pomodoro technique for years. That's not new
Mm.
either, but some apps are based on it. So sometimes we're using existing knowledge and easy to
Yeah.
use, which I love. There's lots of
Yeah.
things that people can do with the AI technology that's available that is either very low cost or free. And that's what I try to talk to organizations about, because they're worried there's going to be a really big cost associated with um, encouraging or allowing their staff to use AI support, they think it's going to cost a lot of
Mm.
money, or they think that there's going to be a risk to their IT systems. Well,
Mm.
actually, it could be as simple as buying a relatively cheap non-brand tablet for about
Yeah.
40-50 pounds, putting a browser on it probably comes with a browser, and
Mm.
allowing them to have access to Copilot, ChatGPT, Grammarly, Gamma. That there's loads of tools out there that help people to create slide decks, check their spelling, and with ChatGPT, of course, you can ask it all sorts of questions.
Mm.
And as long as the company's clear around the rules of using AI content, or how much work-related content is allowed to be used on those things,
Mhm.
then the risk is really slashed. It's not
Yeah.
risky. The company just has to be really clear about how those tools can be used safely.
That's interesting that you're saying that because you mentioned certain, accommodations, for example, whenever I'm training, and I always say to them, to organizations, I'll say, well, look, you can place certain accommodations when it comes to a neuro-inclusive workplace, not just for neurodivergent individuals, for neurotypical too. And sometimes, they may cost very little or nothing, you know. And in your case, you've mentioned this with AI. Again, I'm going to use the word fear. Maybe there's a fear or a worry or
Mhm.
concern that using AI might jeopardize something or may cost an arm and leg. I don't know. So, really, it's that reassurance I hear from you, saying to organizations, well, it's okay. You can use AI apps and tools to help and support. But where would we draw the line, if there is a line, let's say? Because this is something I feel it's a really hot topic, and AI, we can be either anti or pro, right? So how do we now
Mm.
draw the line and kind of work with it for our benefit?
Well, the drawing the line part is about the ethics of how it's used. For example, if someone were to use AI to build an assessment tool
Hmm.
for a recruitment agency or even a business who's recruiting, and that tool has a prompt that will shortlist a set of application forms. If that prompt has any human bias in it, it will do just like a 5-year-old child, it will do as it's told and it will put
Mm.
that bias into that selection.
Mm.
So you have to make sure that the prompts that are put into AI are fantastic quality and very detailed and very prescriptive. And sometimes you do have to do that by committee to make sure that the bias has been winkled out.
Mm.
So with great power comes great responsibility. Now you'll never stop some people being very, very ingenious and doing things like building AI tools to do their job, which they get paid for. And if you ask yourself, let's just have a complete mind shift here. Say I was employing you, Uzma, to do a certain job, and say I was getting the same great quality output from you, and you seemed a bit less stressed. You seemed like, oh, actually, you seem like you've got capacity, you're doing your job well, that's fantastic.
Mm.
And then later I find out that it's because you're using AI to automate some of your job.
Mm.
What would be the point in me getting mad about that? It doesn't even make sense.
No.
If I've still got what I'm paying you for and the
Yeah.
security of my company is still safe, then it's
Yeah.
a no-brainer. You're right, that fear kicks in. It's the fear of the unknown. Oh, but that's cheating. Is it though? Is it
Good
cheating?
question. Yeah.
I don't think it is. I think it's using tools so that you work smarter, not harder. We're all really stressed out at work. We when we're working for other people usually, and we're always given a little bit more than we can cope with. That's what seems to
Mm.
be happening. And if someone leaves, they don't replace the person, they spread their workload out amongst the team. So everyone's got a little bit more to do, only they've
Mm.
still only got the same 37 hours they had last time. And how do you absorb that capacity? You have to find a way of automating something
Mm.
or
Yeah.
reducing your time. I can write a 45 keynote in 30 seconds using AI. I'm not saying that I would just use that keynote, bold as it was, but I wouldn't have to spend a whole day writing a keynote
Yeah.
if I didn't want to. So if I had a really tight deadline, if you'd booked me and said, Sam, someone's dropped out of my event tomorrow, can you step in? This is the subject. This is what I need you to cover. I could say immediately, yes. And I would start with AI and then I would edit. I wouldn't have to write it all first and then try and edit it all. AI would do all the heavy lifting for me in the first instance. That's the kind of thing it can do to help people without it being cheating.
That's interesting. That's really interesting. I'm sure our viewers are going to appreciate what you're sharing with them today, because I do feel like that fear is there. And I think, sometimes it could be, well, it's cheating. You can't. How can you? We didn't do that in the past, So that's why I think moving forward, it could be that little bit of, oh no, we don't want to. We need to work. We need to do it ourselves kind of attitude, you know?
And that's just like going to an artisan bakery, right? And paying £5 for a loaf of bread because it was made lovingly this morning and has no preservatives in it. It has no shelf life. That's the same as that compared to going to the supermarket and buying a loaf of bread off the shelf that's going to last for 6 days and it was
Yeah,
made in its thousands. You get what you buy, and
you
you,
get
the
what you.
the effort that you put in. So yeah, starting from scratch usually will be better. It'll be personally crafted. It'll be deep from within somebody's
Mm,
creative process and all that kind of stuff. But sometimes anyone who's creative, whether it's content writing or drawing or anything like that, hovers over that blank page with that moment of, where shall I start?
mm,
So AI can get you past that moment. And it is very, very general. So when you ask it to pull together a keynote, let's use that example, you need to fact check everything in that keynote. You need to make sure that you've got your stories fleshing it out. You need to make sure that it's not generalized advice because it's taken from 27 sources and all of them were slightly wrong. If you've got a better source, then you should use that one.
yeah,
So that's why
yeah.
it's never a finished article that comes out of AI. It's always just a starting point. Or it
That's
can
good. That's really interesting. A
proofread,
starting point. Yeah.
it can proofread or it can edit, so it can do the end bit as well. But the bulk of it, the main content comes from us humans. AI
Mm,
finds it difficult to make it relatable because it's so general.
that's interesting. Yeah, yeah. And I think that's really important that you mentioned that, because it's a starting point. And now going back to, for example, on neurodivergent individuals, how can this starting point be something that they need? I remember training, it was just before Christmas, and I was training a team of corporates, and they said to me, there's one particular guy, he said to me, I wake up and the first thing I do is I go to, I use my AI tool, and I ask this particular app I'm using how my day looks, because this is what I need. I need that structure, I need that
Mhm.
routine. I can't do it on my own. I struggle. So I have to start my day with this. So how can AI now help and support neurodivergent individuals?
Oh, fantastically so. So imagine HR departments that are sick of having conversations with people who are always late or missing
Mm,
deadlines or having to go on a performance improvement plan because they're having trouble with time management. Wouldn't it be much better if they were allowed to use a tool, I don't know, something like ClickUp, for example, which is a task
mm,
management tool. It's actually one that I use because I just like the interface. I like the way it looks and feels and how it works for me. It's a place where I can list all my tasks and I can give it notes and deadlines, and there's a bit of gamification with how many have I got completed, and there's lots going on in
mm,
there. Some people want a more simplified version, and that's fine too. But what it means is I'm not missing any of my really important things that I need to do. Even we've been using AI for ages, remember? We've been using predictive text. We've been using,
mm.
things like, well, Grammarly's been around for ages, for a start, as an example, to help people with grammar and
Yeah.
spelling and whatnot. And, even so, that whole piece of reminding you to do things in our calendars, say we're using like a Gmail calendar, it's
Yeah.
using code and computers to look at our
Mm.
calendar and go, oh, Sam said she wanted to be reminded 15 minutes before this one starts, and I'm going to show her this thing.
Mhm.
So whilst that might not be full artificial intelligence, it's that's like the basics we've been using for ages and ages and ages. The next step is that it might talk to my phone and go, Sam, you've got a meeting in 10 minutes. You know, it's not a
Mm.
giant leap forward, it's a step forward to helping.
That's
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah.
Otherwise, you're sitting there every morning
Yeah.
going, I've got to put an alarm in for every single meeting I'm going to have. Otherwise, I'm going to get into trouble again.
That's exhausting as well. Yeah. And how can neurodivergent individuals use AI mindfully, I guess, and really, you know, benefit from it, because there are those challenges. There are day-to-day challenges for someone who has ADHD, for example.
Mhm.
Some people prefer routine and structure, and they just need that guidance and support. So my way would be, okay, I need some reminders, I need a planner, I need to see what's coming up next, a warning,
Mhm.
5-10 minutes, not just a reminder, but I guess something that will come up on the day to say you have X, Y, and Z today. Be prepared for the
Mhm.
day, so you're not overwhelmed, and keeping that anxiety at bay as well. So I guess using it mindfully is important, and like you've mentioned, corporates would save a lot of time and money as well.
Definitely. And when you're teaching somebody a new task they've got to do, you could use something like Habitica, which is a habit stacking or tracking app which helps you to form new
Mm,
habits. So if you're teaching somebody something new at work and you want them to do it a very specific way, the same time every time, and it's going to take a bit of repetition for that to bed in,
hmm
you could use an app like that
yeah.
if somebody struggles to do that kind of thing. Not everybody does. Not everybody will need to use it necessarily. But one size doesn't fit all. It never did. It never will. So just having it as an option that people could say, oh, do you know, I'm really struggling with this. Could I use that? And just treating that as perfectly normal to ask for any kind of accommodation you might need. It might be that you're neurotypical and you've got caring responsibilities at home, which is why you need a later start in the morning and more flexible hours. Or it could be because you're neurodivergent and you've had chronic insomnia all your life. And actually, I'm barely awake at 8 o'clock in the morning. Let's do a 10 o'clock start and you'll have me at my most productive.
Mm,
So both of those are the same things
mm,
happening, but for different reasons. So why would you only offer it to someone who could show you a piece of paper saying, I've been diagnosed with something? You don't. You want your employees to be the most productive
yeah.
they can possibly be whilst they're at work. That's what you pay them for. And actually, productive employees are happier
Yep. Yeah.
employees generally. If they're talking a lot at work, if they're wasting time, it's usually because they're not engaged, they don't enjoy their job, they're really stressed out, all of that good, stuff. Maybe they've got difficult bosses, micromanagers, or overlords, or whatever they've got. And you will see in your staff how they flourish and blossom and thrive. And that will bring innovation and invention and growth. And people will do things like overtime without asking for overtime payments because they're actually so
Mm,
involved, they're not clock watching.
they're happier.
The
Yeah.
behaviors will bear out how successful it is.
Yeah. I love that. I think that's really important. And what's that one thing you could say to organizations, to leverage really AI and to create that more inclusive environment for everyone?
Yeah, I'd say don't be scared, start
Yeah.
small and trial it. I'm a big fan of a trial
Mm,
of any kind of change at work. So it could be, okay, so we're going to buy this £50
yeah.
tablet and we're going to give it to an individual and we're going to give them some
Yeah.
guidelines about how we'd like them to use it and see how that goes for 4 weeks and have a look at how that has either positively or negatively impacted their work
Yeah.
or the business because it's got to work for both. After 4 weeks, you can make an assessment of that and decide whether to continue, to stop, or even roll it out to more people.
Yeah. That's great. I think that's amazing. And I think that's so important. And again, going back, I'm going to use that word fear, right? I don't know, that's my favorite word for today. But fear, if you can remove that and be brave enough and be bold enough to say, okay, let's trial it out. Let's see what happens. And if it works, great. And if it doesn't work, that's okay too. But at least we can see if that will benefit our employees and create that more kind of positive environment and supportive environment at work, where there is more productivity taking place. So I agree. And it's like reasonable adjustments, right? Or any certain accommodations. Um, this is just involving technology. Yeah. So have you
Yeah.
seen what kind of anything in your experience, the biggest, example or biggest change organizations where they have used technology to make that adjustment at work?
Um, there is an organisation I'd hold up as a flagship organisation that's doing things well. It's quite a small company. It's called PebblePad, but I very much respect them. They're predominantly IT based company, and the way that they treasure their employees and their mental health and helping them to be confident and comfortable in the workplace and working from home. They went so far as to bring me in to assess their building, and they had 2 large offices, one was hardly used, and I said, "Would you consider making the second one like a quiet carriage on a train?" Because it might be that a lot of people who are working from home do it because they just can't do an open plan office, it's just too
Yeah.
noisy, the
Mm.
energy's all wrong, and they tried it, and lo and behold, more people came from working from home. People from the open plan office could nip into the quiet office to do some work and then go back to the more buzzy office, so they could have a
Wow.
bit of both energies. And
Mm.
suddenly they've got this really flexible workspace where people can choose where they need to be, and it's working fantastically well. But they were already
Oh,
doing great
wow.
things, spaces for people, different types of chairs. They weren't making unreasonable demands on people. Yeah, really fabulous place to work. And the testament to that is how few people left.
That's
Once they
great.
once they start there, they tend to stay,
Yeah,
and that's a real, yeah. There's the evidence,
that's
you know.
amazing. That's really good to know, and it's again making that shift, isn't it? It's about making that shift and making that change to create an environment that works for everyone. And if that means a quiet space or something different, just to keep that environment more positive, why not?
Yeah,
You know?
definitely. And they were using technology. I know that was the part of your question that you kind of asked me about. So they gave people access to those pens that
Hmm.
read for you, for those people who are dyslexic and find reading tricky. They were encouraging people to wear headphones in the office if that helped them to concentrate, either with music or with sound cancelling effect. What other things? Gosh, they were using other stuff as well. Um, just allowing people to set up their machines, their laptops, the way they
Yeah,
needed to work at their best, because we all work slightly differently. Some people want 6 screens, right? They need a wall of
absolutely.
screens to
Yeah,
be their
yeah,
most
absolutely.
productive, and other people are like, "I
Yeah.
just want a laptop.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm
Yeah, whatever works for them. It's true. So, what do you see? I mean, you've given a great example today. You've shared. It's a wonderful example that you shared. What do you envision, Sam? The relationship between, I guess, neurodivergence and AI. How do you see that evolving let's say, over the next decade? How do you see that evolving?
I'm really hoping that because the next generations coming through, Generation Z and Alpha, are already
Mm,
using tools like this outside of work, that they will be quite surprised if they go to work and they're not allowed to use those tools. So I'm hoping they'll be able to self-advocate and say, "Well, yeah, I'm gonna need this tool that I use. Either I need to be allowed to use the one I've got, or I would hope that you'd provide a work version of it so that I can, be the best I can be. This is how I function best." I think more and more young people are becoming more self-aware. They're understanding what they need better, and I think they're less afraid to ask for what they need than perhaps
well, I'll
my
say, yeah,
generation,
our
Generation X.
generation. I guess you're right because I do, and I do see that. I absolutely see that because I feel, if I was working in an organization, yes, there might be that little bit of a hesitation, just say. But now that we're talking about these topics more, there's more awareness. The younger generation, hopefully can ask for this because for them, right, it seems more of a normal thing to use. For us, it's I think way that we're it's that kind of new thing for us, and we're breaking that barrier right now. But for the younger generation, hopefully it's something that's just like, well, why can't you provide that? Surely you can provide that. It's what we need, at work. Is it?
It would be like giving them a landline and them going, "Why have I got a
Exactly.
landline?"
Exactly.
That's how ancient it feels, to
Yeah.
take them back. But truly, organizations tell me that they want employees to
Important.
self-advocate. They want the employees to say, "This is the thing I'm struggling with, and I think this is the thing that will help me. Can I use it, try it, trial it?" Whatever the right words are.
Yeah.
They want people to do that. It's unlikely that an organization is gonna go, "Here's a list of 27 things that you can have. Pick what you like." That doesn't normally happen. It might
No.
happen, there might be a business out there doing that, great, fantastic, but it's more likely to be the other way, and for ages, there was this sort of no man's land in the middle where the organization's saying, "Tell me what you want," and the individual's going, "I can't ask for what I want.
Yeah.
I'm not a diva. I've just joined this organization. How can I do that?"
Yeah.
So it's the coming together of, I'll be honest about some of the things I might need to help me be the best I can. I've got all the qualifications you want from me, but I might need a little extra
Yeah.
support. And the organisation going, "Thanks very much for telling me this is what you can have."
That's brilliant. That's amazing. A simple conversation like that, but again, it's important for the awareness. I think it's raising the awareness, raising the understanding, gaining that understanding, I guess, and really feeling comfortable and saying, well, this is what we need. Can you provide that? And it's a similar thing when we're offering training to corporates, and we say to them, look, it's creating a relationship with your employees and allowing a safe space for them to come and talk to you about their challenges or about the support they need. And again, it's a similar thing when you're looking at AI or any kind of tools or even apps that they need to support themselves. And sometimes, like you mentioned, it could be something very, very simple for a reminder or some steps that they need. For example, when we talk about communication, and this is, you're something that obviously you specialize in. Some individuals just don't like, instructions being given in an email. They might
Or
like something
they
more
can't take it
yeah, yeah,
verbally, they can hear the words, but they can't remember it and they can't process it. So they might say, "I need
yes,
that in writing too." Well, wouldn't it be brilliant if the person giving verbal instructions was also recording that at the time and
mm,
there's now a transcript, and now they can just copy and paste that into an email,
exactly.
bang. They don't have to go back to their desk and type out all the instructions, which sounds
Mm,
like a lot of effort. It's there, exactly as they said it. Or it might be that the individual they're giving the instructions to says, "Do you mind if I just press record so I can record this? Because it'll transcribe it for me. I'll never remember every detail of what you've said."
yeah,
Great! All the heavy lifting's being done by something else. And some people get into real hot water with emails and the tone of an email. A lot of autistic people get in trouble for being too
mm,
blunt, too direct,
mm,
rude. That's how it's perceived because they haven't kind of put the fluffy British way of talking round things. It sounds a bit too, a bit
mm.
too German or a bit too Dutch or whatever, who tend to be a lot more direct. I love working with them. And but the British don't speak that way. They like a little bit more of the, "Oh, hi, Uzma, how are you doing? Oh, I hope you had a lovely time at your holiday. I wonder if you could help me out with this thing." Which is a lot of labour for me to
Mm,
remember to do, because all I wanna do is say, "Uzma,
mm,
can you do
mm,
this by Friday?" Um, and by using AI, again, even the free version of ChatGPT or Copilot or Gemini or whatever they wanna use, they can put that in and say, "Could you make this a bit
mhm.
more
Yeah,
friendly?" And it will rewrite it, and then they can just pop that in. So the heavy lifting, the labour of trying to work out what's the way I should be communicating is all done by AI, and then they don't get into trouble. The person receiving the message doesn't go, "Oh, that's
mm,
really rude." So that's a
mm,
win. The person doesn't get into trouble.
yeah,
That's a win. The company doesn't have to take action on the person who's now in
yeah.
trouble. That's a win. There's just no loser
That's
there.
amazing. That's a brilliant example. That's a really, really powerful example that you shared there. Yeah. And I think it's again going back to, using it mindfully, and using it to your benefit. What you support you need, you can then obviously take it that way, harness it, and that's important. And I'm going to ask you, Sam, what's the one AI tool that you use that's made a difference in your life?
Ooh, that's a good question. Which one
You
will I
probably have many,
choose?
right?
Mm-mm. I do. I use a lot. Do you know, I think I'm gonna
Okay.
pick Canva. So Canva's sort of thought of as a images and,
Mhm.
making a flyer and things like that with pretty pictures and patterns and whatnot. Yes, it is that, but it's also got a lot of AI now in it, where it can do things like expand a photo from that size to this size by imagining how would you expand this with more of the same to make it look like that shape. It's things like that that I think are extraordinarily
That's
clever.
interesting.
Um, I, and I love the way it can pull from lots of different sources to create something new. So whilst it in itself it's not brand new because it's not out of a human head, maybe. mm, do you know what? Are we all brand new? Because we've all read books and seen pictures and films, and surely we're drawing from the sum of our experience, and that's
Yeah.
what AI is doing. It's kind of the same thing. It just has a bigger
Yeah.
database.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm going to say Canva because it's been so flexible in helping me do exactly what I want when I'm designing workbooks, flyers, advertisements, all sorts of stuff, banners for LinkedIn, you name it. Uh, yeah, I've thoroughly
That's
enjoyed
interesting.
using it.
That's great to know
Yeah.
because, yeah, we often think Canvas for, creating flyers or content for social media, for example. But if you can expand and see what else it can offer, that's great. Thank you for sharing. That's really good. Thank you. So it's good that I asked you that the one, right? That's brilliant. Thank you. How do you personally set boundaries? That's another one because I feel, we can really use it. We can really use certain tools when it comes to AI. We can really kind of immerse ourselves into it. But how do you set your boundaries with technology to protect your, I guess, focus and concentration and your well-being? Because sometimes, like I would say now, where do we stop or when do we stop?
I do think it's important to get away from
Mm,
any screen at some point. Uh, people will end up with eye strain and they'll have headaches and they'll find it hard to sleep because their brain will just
yeah,
be going, 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 going the whole time. Maybe they're already there. So I think it is important to step away
yeah,
from the screen deliberately and either take a walk, play a game like a card game or a board game
mm,
with another
hmm,
human. Go and spend time in the kitchen and explore cooking or something like that, do a bit of gardening, do some kind of hobby that is
yeah,
away from the screen that makes you feel nice and good. It might even get you
mm,
to meet other people, which is good because lots of people are
yes, I
very
agree.
lonely. Um, but that whole getting away from screens, we really need that
Yeah,
balance, I think. So it's important to incorporate that and make time for that in your diary so you don't keep going, "Oh, I'll do that tomorrow. Oh, I'll do that tomorrow," and then
yeah,
tomorrow never comes. Because that's the one way you get to
yes,
burnout.
absolutely agree, absolutely agree. So put that in your calendar, put that as a reminder, take a break, step away. Yeah,
I do. I put a whole day in every week,
amazing.
no screens. It
And then
took a while
I was
to
gonna
get
say
used to
follow
it, I'll
through, then
admit.
follow through is a big one. Yeah, reminders
Yeah,
can be there, but
yeah.
following through.
And the key is don't just watch
It
Netflix because that's
is.
another screen, right? The key is go
Mm,
out of the house
mm,
and do something.
absolutely. Meet other people, connect, talk,
Go on a bike ride if you
yeah,
wanna go on your own or go for a walk on your own. You could still listen to a podcast or something,
yeah,
that's not a
yeah,
screen. You don't have to completely cut yourself off from technology, but just give your eyes a rest and look at the world and
yeah. I
especially
was gonna
nature.
say nature is so
Yeah.
important. I think it's a balance. So the key really here, what I'm hearing from you, Sam, is balance. And you use AI intentionally, set those clear boundaries and stay actively engaged with both digital and the real world activities.
Yeah. And people
Yeah,
say they don't have
yeah.
time to do things like to go for a walk, but if you're using AI, you've just bought back half
Yes.
an hour,
Oh, I like
right?
that.
Because you were
I like
using
that.
AI to do something. So go use that half
And
an
do
hour
something else. So
outside.
AI should support growth, not replace. Okay, I love that. Thank
Yeah.
you. So, yep, support growth, but not replace it. The time that you save, go use that for something that you prefer doing or like doing, and make intention to really connect with nature, human beings. I love that. Thank you, Sam. We could talk forever. It is such a wonderful topic because
Mm.
I feel there's a lot happening in the world right now with AI. There's massive changes, and we're talking about it sometimes not such in a- not in a- sometimes not in a positive way, I feel. And again, I think because we're just not sure how to use it properly. So I really wanted to discuss this today with you, Sam, and I'm really happy that I got a chance to. Thank you so much for really sharing your insights with us today. Both your experience and your expertise has been invaluable to our listeners, so thank you so much. Thank you for your time.